AITAH here. I was broken up with by my fiancé because I didn't want his last name. I have dated Brad for 3 years, been engaged for 1. We are a great couple and don't have many fights or low periods. About 2 years ago, Brad and I were talking about marriage and he asked if I would take his last name. I said that I would, and that was that. It wasn't a serious conversation, and that question was certainly not the overall topic of the conversation at the time. Now I should say, I've worked in a small office with 4 other women. There is no one else around, so we have all grown closer together over the last 7 months that I have worked there. We chat about a lot of topics. I will admit that one of these women is somewhat active and vocal. Some of her views I would consider extreme in certain issues. However, they are all great people and we get along well. I also want to point out that my fiancé Brad is also quite progressive too. The ladies at work, all but one, have been married, and I were talking about the last name change. 2 of them had mix-ups and told me the nightmare stories of the bureaucracy they had to deal with. There was some talk about the old school ideas surrounding name changes and how it's not really expected in today's society. I did some thinking and decided that given the hassle, the fact that Brad and I haven't ever really talked about it, and after giving some thought to wanting to preserve my heritage and connections to my family, that I would keep my last name. So I told Brad about it, and we talked a short amount of time about it. He seemed to understand where I was coming from, but said he wanted some time to think it over. I told the ladies at work, and they were all telling me to prepare to defend my points. One in particular, Lisa, was very adamant that I should stick to my guns. Looking up data, and they just were so certain this wasn't a big deal. Now I know they don't have any skin in the game, and I took what they said with a grain of salt, but I will begrudgingly admit, they got me fired up some. So as you might imagine, Brad and I had that talk. He pointed out how important it was for him for me to take his last name, and I was prepared with many of the talking points, of which I agreed with, that I shouldn't have to. I won't go into that conversation here because I don't want to misquote. But essentially he said it was important to him, and that he always wanted to share his last name with his wife. And I brought up a lot of counterpoints centered around the hassle, possible divorce, feminism, etc. At the end of this talk, I felt like I had proven my point so much better than he had his. So that brings us to this week. We had to spend a week apart for reasons that are entirely irrelevant to this. But we had a phone call where I was shell-shocked by what happened. He basically said he wants to call off the engagement and break up with me. It was a terrible call, and I was in shock over it that I don't recall it too clearly. 2 days later, we had a text exchange. I really didn't think this was a hill to die on or a deal breaker. I tried to backtrack and tell him that if it was so important to him, then I would gladly take his last name. I just wanted to be with him. This is what he said. You had originally agreed to take my last name. You changed your mind, and I feel that it was in large part due to the ladies you work with. Now you are free to change your mind whenever you want. However, I can't see myself marrying a woman who allows others to influence her so much. You are slowly changing, and this is just the final bullet to that point. I expect my wife to care more about my feelings than those of her coworkers. Furthermore, even if I am off base with that statement, the simple fact remains that I told you how important this was to me, and you countered with the hassle of it and ideologies. On one hand is the importance and needs of your soon-to-be husband, and on the other, all the reasons you gave. You made a choice. You chose those reasons over me. Even if you take my last name now, do I want a wife that will select convenience over her husband's feelings? I love you and want the best for you. I wish you wanted what I wanted. When we talked about this, you were coming at me like you were in a national debate team. I not once felt like you were actually listening to me. I only felt like you were looking for ways to tear my words apart or counter them. I can't marry a woman who doesn't genuinely have any empathy or respect for me. I wish you the best. I will always love you. Then he blocked me. I will be back in our town tomorrow. I really want to make this work. I don't know if I can, but I want to put this behind us. I really didn't understand how strongly he felt about this. I think I'm planning on talking to him tomorrow. I just don't know exactly what to say. I know it's my right to take or not take any last name I want when I marry. I know my reasons are solid. I just didn't realize that this would kill my relationship. I love him and I want to be with him. Please give me some insight into what to say to work through this. I feel so guilty.